Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's broadcast of the Marin Symphony. We continue this week with an ongoing series of musical portraits of the members of the Marin Symphony Orchestra. And it's my pleasure this week to welcome our principal harp, Dan Levitan, who has been with the orchestra in that capacity since, I believe, January of 1984, which is now more than 35 years. Which is a remarkable tenure. So welcome, Dan. How are you?
Thank you, Alasdair. I'm just fine. Thank you so much. And what a pleasure to get to do a conversation with you. I'm absolutely delighted.
Well, likewise. I wish we were in person, but you know, this is all second best at this point, and it's great to see you on the screen in the midst of all this. So how is life like these days for you?
Well, it's a good question. I know you've asked several of the other people that have had the conversation with you. The first couple weeks of realizing everything was being canceled were rather not so easy to deal with emotionally. After picking my emotions up off the floor, I thought, well, Dan, you better get busy and do something constructive rather than think about what isn't going to happen. Think about what you can do with this very actually valuable piece of time. And first thing I thought of was for all of us that are not exposed to this serious virus that's going around, those of us that are not exposed to us, hopefully we're all in really excellent health. But I took the feeling that, great, I could use some rest right now. So I got myself rested, and I inherited a language business from my wife, who passed away 5 years ago this month. It's a language business that provides mostly Spanish and some Mandarin to anywhere from preschool to middle school in many of the Bay Area schools. So I have been observing our wonderful teachers that we have in this business. It's called the IES, which stands for International Educational Systems, IES Language Foundation. And I have watched. We have 30 teachers. We had about 25 of them that were actually teaching online for continuing the program, which was really great. So we lost very few of the teachers, and we lost very little of the business we were actually conducting. So that was a real blessing in itself. And also a lever harpist contacted me. And he has a suite for harp. It's a folk song suite. It's 20 pages of music. I don't remember exactly how many movements, but he contacted me a couple times, and finally in May, he said to me, would you be willing to learn this piece of music, and would you be willing to record it? And I said, sure. I got to hear it. It's absolutely beautiful music. The couple tricks though, until I'm officially hired, which is still yet to be confirmed. And I had to learn the music first of all, but I have to play the music on a lever harp. And I'm accustomed to playing on a 47-string concert grand pedal harp. So
What is a lever?
A lever harp means the harp has this beautiful curve, which is called the neck. That's the very characteristic part of the instrument that we all see that stands out. You know, it gets confused with a heart with a T on the end as opposed to a P as in pumpkin on the end, but it has that very characteristic shape. And on the neck itself, rather than having little discs that open and close on the strings to shorten and lengthen them and change their pitch, there are levers which you manually have to change with your hand. So you have to figure out if you can use your left hand while you're still playing your right hand, or you take an unusual pause in the music so you can change the levers, either engage them or disengage them. You look like you have a question.
Well, it's probably a super question. So that given the fact that you have these very helpful things that your feet are working, the pedals, what is the advantage of having to put yourself in that situation? Isn't that kind of why the pedal harp exists in the first place?
I completely agree. And I tried to talk this gentleman into letting me use the pedal harp, but it'd be.
Maybe
And I
it's not
thought, oh
a
boy,
question after all. Why on earth are you doing this?
why? Well, yeah, right. Why would you do something like this? Well, there's several reasons for that. It's a different sound. It's a very different sound. It's you don't need as much strength to play on a lever harp. You need. I've had students study on a lever harp, beginning students, but I've actually never really performed on the lever harp. So it should be easier. I'm going to find out. I'm going to be renting a harp from another colleague, and this weekend, as a matter of fact, I'll be driving to her house and using her lever harp, which she's kind enough to let me use. She won't let anybody else use it either. I mean, even the person that wanted me to do the project, she wouldn't allow him to borrow the instrument or rent the instrument. But as a favor to me, she's allowing this. So one thing is the sound. And then I don't know if were you asking me also why I would even agree to something like this? Was that part of the question?
Pretty much, because it sounds like it's much harder than if you were just doing the same piece on a regular harp. So I guess part of the advantage is the sound that you were saying. There's a different quality.
The sound. And then also he's willing to pay me. That's a great plus too. Why
Fair
not?
enough.
Why not? Nothing else. There really isn't any other. There's no other income coming in right now. So why? Why not? I mean, I'll be fine. I'm not. I can still put food on the table. It's not that problem. But sure, why not? And I thought the music is so beautiful. That's another reason. It's absolutely gorgeous music. It's familiar melodies, and I've really been enjoying playing through it. I really have. It's
I'm always interested in people's origin stories, musicians' origin stories. Why the harp, and how did it come into your possession for the first place? In the first place.
That's a great question. I started on the piano when I was 7.5 years old. So that was just 20 years ago. No, it must be a little bit more than that, right? Because if I started in the orchestra, yeah, just a little bit more, right? But I started when I was 7.5. My parents and grandparents, my parents and my paternal grandparents owned a business school. And one of the students played the piano, and he played the boogie woogie style on the piano. And I was 5 years old at the time that I heard this, and all the students heard him, and I was there as well, little guy listening. And the students got so excited after he finished whatever he was playing. They were cheering, they were clapping, they were so excited. I just pointed to the piano and I said to my parents, I want to do that. So that's how piano lessons started. 2.5 years later, actually. They didn't have, we had access to a piano at the business school, but I didn't have a piano at home that I could practice on. And I'll be honest, when I started playing the piano, I hated to practice. And it took years to learn how to really properly practice on any instrument. I just wanted to sit down and play. I thought, oh, great, I'll just do what I just heard. Well, it's not that easy. It's a lot of work. It really
So how
is a lot of work.
did the transition come from piano to harp? Because that's a different kettle of fish.
In high school, I was playing. I was one of the accompanists for the high school choir. I went to school in Philadelphia, and I was in an all-male high school. It was a public high school. Now it's a co-ed high school. But they wanted someone, or they wanted several students in the high school that already had a musical background to start on the harp. And there were 8 of us that played the piano, and we all had to audition a little bit on the piano. And all 8 of us got harp lessons. We received harp lessons. And then out of the eight, I was the one that was picked to play in the orchestra. It would have been my sophomore year of high school. And I thought it was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. I had never had an experience quite like that. So I played in the high school orchestra for 3 years. And then at the end of high school, I received a couple of awards, 2 awards for something to do with music. And I was actually enrolled in a theater school. It was Temple University in Philadelphia. And after I received the awards, it seemed to make sense to go in the music school direction. So that's really what happened, and it kept going from there. You know, all the training I studied with. I stayed with 1 year the principal harpist in the Philadelphia Orchestra that time, and then for 5 years really I studied with my teacher who just retired. She was the associate principal. She was started the second harpist, and then they gave her the title as associate principal harpist. So we still communicate even to this day. What a wonderful person, and she's the one that really taught me how you have to use a metronome, how you do things slowly, you fix certain places in the music, and she was really very helpful that way. So the reason I say 5 years, I graduated with my bachelor's in 4 years, but I started a master's. I didn't finish it because I wanted to perform. I wanted to be on the stage. I wanted to be playing for people. I didn't want to be in the library. I didn't want to be in books. I wanted to get out and start playing for people. And I love the attention. I love what it does to communicate with people. People get so excited, you know. I wanted to generate that same excitement. And the harp seemed to be the vehicle. So
it just connected with you in a very special way, clearly.
It did. It really did. And it's very similar to the piano. In fact, I tell people this all the time. The expectations on the piano are huge, absolutely huge. And at the time I started playing the harp, the expectations on the harp were if you could play what we call a glissando, the easiest effect on the harp, everyone was like, wow, that's incredible. You must be a genius. You know, when in reality, all you did was something so simple. You know, I could teach somebody in 30 seconds how to do it. Has no musical background at all. So it just seemed to work. And I remember my high school conductor saying to me at the end of my senior year, saying something to me, well, something about a profession as a harpist. And I thought to myself, he must be completely out of his mind. I'm not going to be a professional harpist. That's ridiculous. I'm going to go into the theater school, you know. But I didn't say that to him, of course. But,
so now that you are a professional harpist and have decades of experience under your belt, what are some of the challenges, both on and off stage, of being part of an orchestra?
Well, a challenge, first of all, it depends on what orchestra you're a member of or what orchestra you're working with. I would say a really big challenge is getting the harp to where it's supposed to be and getting yourself to where you're supposed to be, especially in the Bay Area or any metropolitan area where we have lots of people on the road, lots of cars, and the travel time it takes to get from one place to another has just dramatically increased since I moved here. You know, it's really a big challenge. So that's a very big challenge. And I'd say,
because this is kind of interesting. I remember I've had on more than one occasion an email from you as we're planning the season 7 months in advance and saying, could you tell me what your rehearsal order is? Let's say you're emailing me in September. Could you tell me what your rehearsal order is on April 8th on Friday evening? Because I'm just, if you need me for this piece up until the time, because you will have come from somewhere else, like, I don't know, somewhere in the South Bay, and you're trying to figure out, cram that all into it. And I just realized that's an incredible jigsaw puzzle that your life must be.
Oh, it is. It's an incredible jigsaw puzzle. I'm principal harpist, contracted principal harpist in 2 other orchestras in addition to Marin Symphony, Santa Rosa Symphony, and then Symphony Silicon Valley in San Jose. And sometimes the schedules work out perfectly, and sometimes they just conflict, or they conflict just a little bit. Mm-hmm. And you know, when let's say we have a rehearsal in Marin from 10. I'll just take. I really can't take Sunday morning because we have a dress. Well, I could. We have a rehearsal from 10 in the morning till 12:30 in the afternoon. And if I'm not needed in Marin until, let's say, 11:30, maybe there's something, if somebody has asked me to do some playing in the South Bay at 9 or 10, maybe I can actually fit that in and get to Marin in time and not be, you know, late for what I'm doing. So I've done that enough times, more times than I care to think about. But I've been able to work it out many, many times. And, you know,
I'm having this image of you. Well, this is the time where, under those circumstances, it's a lot easier to play a piccolo because you can run like the Dickens with a piccolo under your arm and run out on stage. But you don't have that option as a harpist. There's that whole instance of getting the harp out of your car, onto the dolly, onto the stage, and tuned as well. People
and
probably don't
tuning. That's the
how much of your life is spent tuning the damn thing.
half of my life tuning, half of my life hoping that it's still in tuned. or the joke is, what do harpists do with half their time? They spend half their time tuning, the other half of their time they play out of tune. It's, you know, it's not a joke that really harpists like to hear. You know, we like to hope.
Well, you said so.
But as far as getting from one place to the other, I own more than one harp, so I can strategically place a harp in on the different stages if I'm allowed to do it. So not only do I have to, you know, concern myself with the schedule between different groups or the rehearsal order, I would have to ask a stagehand or the stage director if I'm allowed to leave the harp on the stage ready to go, and then I can, if my harps are generally well in tune, and I always check them, but if I keep them well in tune, they usually just need a little touch up, unless they're broken strings or a serious weather change. And so that's another challenge. but
many composers have written for the harp over the years, and some have responded to the particular challenges of the mechanics of the harp better than others. Is there any one composer that you particularly enjoy playing as a harpist that really understands the ins and outs as well as the colors that you can bring out?
That's a great question. Ravel is really one of my favorites. He technically, his writing fits well in the hand, or the facility that you need works very, very well on the harp, almost always. It's like 99% of the time works very, very well. And, you know, even though Debussy's music is so beautiful, it doesn't always work quite as well technically. It's, you know, usually it seems like it's written more for the piano. See, on the harp, we only use 4 digits in each hand. We don't use our pinkies. And on the piano, we use all 5. You know, we use all 10 digits. So all 5 in each hand. So that presents a few challenges. Then it's, you know, it's just amazing. French music usually works very well on the instrument, usually, or Russian. In fact, some of the Russian music works very well too. So it's amazing. You know.
Well, that seems to provide the perfect segue into the musical selection that you've most kindly prepared for us this afternoon. You were just talking about Debussy's Ear for Color, and you'll be playing one of his most famous works, Clair de Lune, which of course was originally written for the piano, but in harp transcription. Is that correct?
Correct. A gentleman named Victor Kerr did a wonderful transcription for the harp, and it just really makes the harp shine. It makes one even wonder, did Debussy really write the piece for the piano, or did he actually really write it for the harp? You know, of course, I'd like to say, of course, he meant the harp for sure. And I will tell you also, any of you that are listening that happen to have that wonderful gift, or some people don't always consider it such a gift, of perfect pitch, Victor Kerr changed the key of the piece. He put it in D major rather than D flat. And the reason he did that, it allows the harp to have fewer pedal changes. So there are very few pedal changes, just putting the key up just 1/2 a step. So it works so much easier technically on the instrument. So, yeah.
Wow. So interesting. Thank you for that insight, and thank you for your beautiful gift of music, and thank you for spending the time to be with me this afternoon, and for us to have this lovely conversation. It's really wonderful. We've been colleagues for so many years now, and it's just great to get a little bit of your background story and for us to share your passion for music.
And if I could add just one more thing, this will be a surprise to you. I just want to tell everybody what a pleasure and privilege it is to work with you. I really enjoy it, and I haven't known if anybody else has actually expressed it this way publicly, but I really do feel that way, and I'm sure many of my colleagues would agree with me too. What a pleasure, what a privilege, what a gift it is. Thank you so much for what you give to us.
Right back at you.
Thank you.
And with hugs and appreciation for everything that you bring to the orchestra, your artists, your artistry, your humanity, and your friendship. Dan Levitan, gentlemen.
Thank you.